It's just, it's set up, he's setting up for live stream right now.
Very good. Hi.
And that, and I'm just waiting for a tablecloth.
Okay.
And then the family's just in the lunchroom here.
Oh, they are. Okay, I'll go over and talk with them then.
Yeah.
Do you have the washroom first?
Yes, you bet, yeah.
Okay. Let's take care of that.
Yes, we are. So I'll send you the link. Saul Jacobson.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send this to Paramjit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, unless you just send it to me, direct, no?
Yeah.
Or
I don't have your number.
okay, okay.
Your voice. There is a mic over there. This is the mic. Just give me your number.
204. And just put me in, guys. 226 7581. Curtis.
Curtis?
Yeah. CURTIS.
I'll send it to you.
Okay. Because then I'll send it to the wife and she can.
Yeah, good.
Oh, you sent it on WhatsApp, okay? Can I just copy it again?
see you in a moment. We'll take care of it. Okay. You don't mind? Will there be a microphone, or do you need
No.
for that? You find you can pick up everything?
Yeah, I
That's
think
good. The room is small. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, so it's good.
Okay, that's good. As long as you're fine with it. Okay, so you
Yeah.
got.
So we are live and your voice is.
Oh, I can hear it already. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nah?
Photo?
Yeah, okay, just, yeah, down there to the.
Smells better.
Yeah, we got,
Curtis speaking. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. You know what, probably 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm going away next weekend, so when I get back, I'll give you a call. Okay, thank you.
so I'll give you those. for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a place below too.
There's a little shelf underneath.
Yeah, so just gonna check on the
Yeah, yeah. I was just waiting for
This
table.
chair?
There, that's for you if you, no,
I'll just stand outside.
okay, and it just, because I think somebody's gonna give you.
Yeah, and I'll just we'll go to the corner then.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, okay. So just kick that out of here.
Okay. And what synagogue are you
I'm in Temple Solomon.
in? Is that on Academy?
No, that's the one on, it's right across from Grand Park. It's on Grand
Oh,
Park.
yes.
So basically there's three major denominations and some breakups, but
Yeah.
Orthodox is the more traditional one. Conservative would be Shared Santa, which is the one you're thinking of, or this kind, and I'm on the Reform or Liberal side. But I'm the one who can do the audibles, because most rabbis won't touch it.
No,
I can do things in Jewish and non-Jewish sides, because I was in an interfaith marriage, so I actually get all this stuff. And I'm not sure if you heard that with Rena Borditsky at St. John's, they do it on it. She's the one who said, "We'll talk to this guy. You can handle all the audibles," which is good for you to know as well.
Right on, yeah, and I'll give you one of my cards out.
Absolutely.
Actually, I'll give you one right now. This is my purse.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, and we'll go visit after and that, but, yeah, I want to go into it.
No, I just concentrate on what needs to be concentrated on. Or would you like to sit there? Middle of the road.
Make yourself comfortable, folks. Yes, Rich,
Mind if I see you in here?
Now let's do another roll.
Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing courage and comfort and, in the fullness of time, healing and peace. I'm going to go to Psalm 121. I'll do it in English, and then I'll do it in Hebrew as well. It's a song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? May help come from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot get away. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. Yes, I Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzekecha uvoecha. Me'ata, me'ata, me'ata v'yad olam. Shalom, I'm Rabbi Alan Finkel, and I'm honored to lead this service on behalf of the Jacobson family, as together we honor the passing of Saul Jacobson, the son of Samuel and Basil Jacobson, Shor, Shlomo ben Shmuel, who left us this past Monday morning, May 26, 2024, at the age of 69. Peacefully, and after a long illness, with ginger at his side, which we will note on the Hebrew calendar as the 18th day of Iyar in the year 5784. Saul is survived by his sister Sybil Stokolov and her husband Stan Milet, by his truly beloved wife Ginger, and he leaves behind his two children, his son Matthew Stephen Jacobson and his wife Nicola Hyde, and his son Philip Michael Jacobson and his wife Brittany Lee Fash, and their two children, Saul's beloved grandchildren, Ophelia Louise and Shiloh Aaron. And as we gather here today, we recognize Saul's connection to the generations that preceded him. And we also recall those in Saul's family who have gone on this same journey. His parents Samuel and Basil, Zuchanam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. We live our lives in the broader world, and Saul most certainly did so. He leaves behind so many close friends and colleagues across so many cities and towns across Canada throughout his illustrious radio career and in the life he created in each of those communities. Kenora, where he was born, Melfort, Winona, and over time, Brandon, Saskatoon, and Regina, and then Ottawa, and finally Winnipeg. In every one of those places, his adopted home, Saul touched people. He engaged them as a disembodied radio voice on current topics in music, and in public appearances, and as an author, and as a lover of music, and his passion he shared for so many others, and in so many ways, he touched the lives of thousands upon thousands of unseen Canadians who nevertheless saw, sensed, and felt the values that Saul represented, that they invited into their homes and into their lives over the airwaves. They too, like all of us, will mourn Saul's passing. I want to express my appreciation for the time spent with Ginger in the past few days, and as well as Saul's sister Sybil and husband Stan. And what I saw and heard from the family were invariably warm smiles and wonderful stories about Saul and their intertwined lives coming always from a place of love. Their stories were just the beginning of the stories that we will tell today and in the days and years ahead. But it is here at this moment where we really start to tell the stories, what Jewish tradition describes as chesed, or eulogy, where we get to discover in the words of those who knew him best about the incredible values that their Saul Jacobson lived his life by. The values he instilled in his children, his profound love of people, and underlying it all, everything fueled, surprisingly, by Jewish values that he had grown up with and had quietly passed on to his children and everyone around him simply by how he chose to live. Saul's physical journey in this world has come to a conclusion, but it was also a day that he knew was coming, with a medical diagnosis, a challenging medical diagnosis that offered him a clear and too short life trajectory. But sometimes there are hidden blessings in these last days. Ginger's first words to me on Monday were that we all had an opportunity to say what we needed to say. And that included Ginger's mother, his sister Sybil, and both of our sons and both of their wives. And Ginger talked about Ophelia, Saul's 6-year-old granddaughter. 6 weeks ago, Ophelia went to see Saul, and even she knew that the end was coming, but was always able to find joy that day. And in the weeks since, Ophelia kept asking after him how she'd be talking about her visit changing in the future, not to visit her grandma and grandfather, but for Savta and Zeta, but now just her grandmother, for Savta, that she would be visiting. And in these last months, Saul was also blessed with the opportunity to do the same. Even as he started to lose his voice, his golden voice, he was able to offer quiet stories and gestures and words of love. And Ginger told me about what might have been his last words late last week. She would visit him in the morning bedside, hold his hand, and wish him a good morning, not anticipating a response. But on that morning, Saul opened his eyes, and with a look of recognition, he said, "I'm done." And then he whispered the word, "Milford." The place where he and Ginger had their first official teenage date, and where they had agreed to cast his ashes at DNR Park, the site of that fabled teenage party. I think it was a reminder. She put those reminders, don't forget. That's where it started, and that's where it went. So today, we will tell more stories. This is the time, while we are still in Saul's presence, for us to start to share the story of his life and for us to tell our stories about him, so that we all come to appreciate that Saul has not only left a mark on all who knew him, but how he in turn has made a mark on the world. As we hear these stories, they will add layers to what we already knew of him from our personal experience, that he, like all of us, was and is a jewel with many facets. And as we share these many new stories with each other, we truly learn that behind every person we know, or we think we know, there is so much more to be discovered and cherished, and to be loved and missed. And so we'll start, and I'll ask Matthew and Phil to come up to share their stories.
Dad was many things to many people. A brother, husband, father, Zeta. He was a musician, radio host. He was an author and a volunteer. But I believe it was his grade 2 teacher, Miss Bratton, that summed him up very well. In a story that he tells, she wrote, "Saul is very talented as a student. His work is excellent, he learns quickly. But would you please teach him to shut up? If there is one thing you know about my dad, you know he had a way with words. He knew the right phrase to hook your attention and embellish just enough to keep you listening. Dad had a mischievous streak, fitting for someone who was born on Halloween. Growing up, we heard many of the same stories over and over again, and saw firsthand how each story would grow in the telling of it. Wait a minute, how far did you drive that ball? How far did you make that putt? We learned early on not to get too caught up in the facts. So, par became a hole-in-one, and elements conspired to make something sound a little too miraculous. We learned to go along for the ride. It was always more fun to see the world the way he did.
Case in point, when Phil and I were really young, Dad would take us on what he would call his nature walks. These were both educational and entertaining, mostly entertaining. We'd walk along, and Dad would point things out to us, and he'd ask us if we knew what they were. And of course, invariably we'd say no, and he'd offer his thoughts and his ideas. He'd ask if we knew what the kind of trees, those new saplings that were just planted along the side of the road, happened to be. And we said, they're trees? He says, well, no, they're palm trees. Specifically because they were small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. He'd tell us the lines on the sidewalk were made because snails were trying to get across to the other side. He'd tell us that ant colonies had queens only because they didn't have kings. Dad's stories may not have always made complete sense, but they always made magic.
Like his natural gift for storytelling, some things came easy to Dad. When he was a kid, growing up in Melfort, our Aunt Sybil had always been amazed, and probably rather annoyed, that Saul could do so well with music and school without studying. She told me that she had to study very hard, while Dad seemed to do quite well while studying, while playing golf, or on the basketball court. But while he may have played fast and loose with his homework, Dad's devotion to music was constant throughout his life.
Dad was a bit of a smaller kid, kind of like I was. Short, really short, very skinny, and he had some huge, huge ears. When he was learning how to drum at school, his band director, Bob Latimer, made all the students who signed up for percussion start on the bass drum. This was a marching band, by the way, just to give you some context. When the time came for Dad, for his turn at the upcoming parade, they're walking along, and there becomes a hill. Dad was no match for the wheels on that bass drum as they were walking down, and it just started to roll, and it kept rolling and gaining speed. And Dad was just not able to slow it down. So the bass drum and Dad just kept speeding up, running down the hill, faster and faster. And I'm sure the last time he told that story, it was a 90-degree hill, it was snowing, and he wasn't wearing his coat. He was in any band he could find and spent countless hours practicing, drumming on anything he could find. It would include his legs, the steering wheel, any table, any surface. When Phil and I were growing up, we ended up having drum and rhythm sections and sessions at pretty much every family meal, lunch and dinner, breakfast sometimes. Anything was a drumstick or a drum. Cutlery, fingers, elbows, feet, glass. And that's either drinking or reading glasses, didn't matter. When the time came to introduce Brittany and Nikki to our dad, we had to prep them a little bit for this sort of, erratic habit, letting them know that this was just the music in Dad's head. It was always itching to get out, and we went along with it. We loved it. I remember from a really young age, Dad would take me to the radio station. We'd walk in, we'd say hello to everybody. He was as much a star with the staff as he was with those who listened to him on the radio itself. We'd walk in, he'd say hi to everybody. He always had a story for someone, and everyone said hello to him. Eventually, we get into the actual radio booth itself. And I just remember that smell more than anything else. Vinyl records and cigarette smoke. Everybody could smoke at that point. Everybody smoked indoors all the time, and that smell was just heavy and ever present. We'd sit down, he'd start setting up the equipment for his set. He'd tell me about the musicians and the records he was going to play that day, and he'd launch into a story about one of those bands or one of those musicians. Without breaking a sweat, he'd lean over, he'd flip the switch, he'd introduce the next band and the next song to the radio, turn the switch off, and continue with that context that was meant for me that went to everybody else. Always amazed me how he could do that. His radio career spanned more than 35 years, and he had the opportunity to tell stories like that and touch the lives of countless people.
Dad had a big heart. It was one of the things we all admired most about him. He was generous with his time as an avid volunteer at the Broadview Public School, leading 15 years of band trips with my mother as the jazz band director. He helped Mom corral way too many students to count to an endless amount of concerts, festivals, competitions, recitals, and the list goes on. He spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with these kids, which is eventually why he was awarded a Governor General's Award for community volunteering.
Long time ago, I remember years ago, there was a reunion concert in honor of Bob Latimer, that former teacher of Dad's. But Bob ended up getting really sick shortly before the concert, and there was talk of canceling. If there is one thing Dad was good at, it was making the best of a bad situation. And he and his fellow bandmates discussed and decided we're going to have the concert anyway, even if that means in the hospital and only for Bob. So they did. They found a way. They set up in the hospital, The kids of the band members were able to join as well, and we performed with them. And we had that concert for one person. It was wildly impractical, but incredibly kind. And that was Dad to a T. After the concert, we had some time to speak to some of the other band members. They all had a similar story about him. The music they played, the stories he told, and how he could talk their ears off for days on end.
The greatest story of Dad's life wasn't one that he told. It wasn't embellished. It was the one that he lived. And that was the love story between him and our mother. There was one thing that Dad loved more than music. It was Mom. And it was only fitting that music led him to the love of his life, who stood by him through 43 years of marriage. They met when they were just teenagers, and while circumstances pulled them apart, they always managed to find their way back to each other. He would boast publicly about how Mom was an angel and his moral compass, often telling us both that we should simply ask ourselves, what would Mom do when we needed advice, and to find the next right thing. What was so remarkable about Mom and Dad wasn't just their love for each other and their endurance, but how much they liked each other. Whether Mom was laughing or rolling her eyes, and usually a combination of the two, you could see that what they had was unique and special, truly a soulmate connection. This love produced both Matt and I. We had now found our angels and our moral compass within our wives, Nikki and Brittany. And our two grandchildren, his two grandchildren, Ophelia and Shiloh, who he loved more than life itself.
When they told us Dad was diagnosed with Lewy body, we were devastated. The man with the golden voice, who could talk for days on end without stop, without annoying me, would slowly lose the ability to communicate. We watched helplessly as he started to lose the ability to speak clearly, and he withdrew into himself. And yet still, right to the end, there was a story being told behind those eyes. And he would let you know with a look and a squeeze of the hand that he was telling you something that was sure to make you think. As we were preparing this eulogy today, we came across an old video of Dad at a conference, and it was just really wonderful to see him the way he used to be. In his element, king of the stage, weaving his stories for a truly captivated audience. He was talking about his process on the radio, and how it was a harder job than it looks. All between gushing about his brand new granddaughter, Ophelia, who at the time was everything to him. And about him and Mom being called adorable just outside the rehearsal dinner for my wedding, because they stopped to hold hands and Dad gave her a kiss on the cheek. And then he said something that really stuck with me. He was describing a fancy new notebook he got for himself. And people had asked him, why would you buy an expensive notebook that has no information in it? And his response was, to remind myself it's time to get out and find something worthwhile to put into this book. If you want to honor our dad's story, write your own. Fill the pages of your life with music and with love, and his memory will live on. And if you ever meet someone like Miss Bradley, don't ever let them shut you up. Dad never did, and we're all the better for it.
I asked the family about Saul's sense of his Judaism, and they paused and they smiled, and they suggested that it really wasn't a big part of his life. He'd grown up with Jewish parents, and his Judaism extended only as far as theirs did. and he would have described himself as secular. But as we talked more, our conversations evolved, and we came to understand that Judaism really was a big part of the underpinning of Saul's life, both directly because of his relationship with Ginger and her decision to commit to Judaism, but also because of the huge undercurrent of Jewish values that Saul may not have really discerned, that really permeated how he viewed and engaged his world. I'll share a bit about their journey, which is about Saul, but also about Saul and Ginger, and their evolving relationship with Judaism. So Saul and Ginger literally met at band camp. They were both in different marching bands from different communities. Saul was part of the Melford band that was going overseas to Europe. As Ginger describes it, one of the lead horns in the Melford band became unavailable, and there was like a hockey trade. And she was loaned from one band to the next for the summer and for that trip. Saul was 16 and she was 15. And during that summer, July of 1971, they had their first official date at a teen party in Melford at that DNR park. They reconnected 10 years later. I guess teenage relationships aren't always meant to last, but sometimes they are. They met about 10 years later, more mature and with lived experience, and soon after they got married. They had a civil ceremony at that time with 12 guests and a dinner. And 2 kids later, it would be Ginger who would sort of drag the family towards Judaism. She was unhappy with what her own religious path had been offering her, and she found Judaism to be of interest. There's this thing where it is said that when a rabbi is approached by somebody wishing to convert, you're supposed to reject them 3 times. If they really want it, before they'll take the candidate on, they come back in the 4th time. But as Ginger describes it, that happened to her as well, but with a twist. In this case, of the rabbi and Saul, and Saul's mother, who kept saying, "Are you sure?" But Ginger knew it was important to offer their kids a connection to a spiritual community. They were in Regina at that time, and they found a wonderful conservative congregation and a rabbi that they truly loved. They didn't join right away, they volunteered a lot, certainly Ginger did. And they sent their kids to Hebrew school, they eventually joined, and Ginger made her choice to learn more, to step into the process, to embrace Judaism, and to convert. Saul was cautious all the way through this, but he stood by in quiet admiration as Ginger embarked on her journey. So 10 years after their first marriage, Saul and Ginger got married a second time in their synagogue, in that synagogue, which was one of the most wonderful evenings, wondrous evenings of their lives, with their rabbi officiating and with their kids and their families and their community surrounding them with love. Saul was inwardly pleased when all was said and done, and whether he understood it or not, Ginger noted that experience had changed him. He got involved with B'nai B'rith and children's camp and became quite passionate about making things good for the kids who attended, knowing that it would create a way of life for them for generations to come. I asked about his values and what Saul stood for, and I immediately heard about how he led with his heart. If someone was hurting, he would try to help. And he had a particular affinity for the underdog, probably that short, skinny guy that was out there before. And I would always ask, what can I do? It would not be about giving them things, it would be instead of giving them the tools that they needed. And he had an interesting moral compass that was externally framed. He was not as concerned with what the right thing or the good thing to do was, but rather, how did it make people feel? Not just how to make Saul himself feel, but how the people around him felt because of the actions he was instigating. And then I asked, well, what 3 things Saul would have wished that his sons, Matthew and Phil, would have learned from him and brought into their own lives and into the generations to follow. And again, the answers came quickly. The first was compassion and all the attendant pieces that came with it. So, empathy, sympathy, and seeing both sides of every story. And Ginger was clear, this was something he was so proud that Matthew and Philip had carried into their own lives. The second was the joy of creativity, which he sees and occurs at both of his sons. And especially how happy he was to see that the two women they married, Nicola and Brittany, are people blessed with great creative gifts as well. And the third value he hoped to pass on was simply his joy of making something better than it was before. In Judaism, we call that tikkun olam, repair of the world. Saul may or may not have appreciated it, but he truly did embrace a Jewish way of life. Rabbi Akiva, 1800 years ago, in the diaspora after the destruction of the Second Temple, was once asked to describe the teachings of the whole Torah, the 5 books of Moses, in one sentence. And Rabbi Akiva pointed to one line in the very middle of the Torah that said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." He wasn't talking about love as affection, but rather love as an action. The incredible power we can have in our connections to the world around us, how we engage with other people. When we make the world a better place, person by person, we become better people. And the better we are, the more we can do to make the world a better place. And so often we do it one person at a time. Rabbi Akiva went on to say that everything else in the Torah is simply supporting that. Didn't start with the relationship with God, or keeping kosher, or keeping the Sabbath. All those things, those rituals, were a way for us to connect to our spirituality and to become the best people we can be, so we can be the best people we know else. So from everything I've heard, this is the life that Saul truly embraced. And speaking with Ginger and Saul's sister Sybil and Stan, especially in hearing the remarkable stories told by Matthew and Philip today, there is no doubt that Saul Jacobson truly made a mark in this world, and that the world is a better place for the part that he played in it. Saul was loved, truly loved, and for Saul's family and for all who knew him, may his name and memory always be for a blessing. And he would say, "Can you hear that song?" English, may it be God's love. So before proceeding with the rest of the service, I do have a few notes. Once we conclude here, you're invited to join the family for a meal of the consolation, right next door where we came from before. The family has advised that they will not be sitting Shiva formally. Shiva is seven days a week. We will not be sitting Shiva formally after today, but I hope that you will reach out to the family both today and in the days ahead. In Jewish tradition, it is these next few days that we describe as a period of mourning, where our obligation as a community is to comfort the mourners immediately. So, do reach out, be open to the calls, tell your stories, and be sure to listen to theirs. Jewish tradition also encourages donations in Saul's honor. This idea that the soul is moving towards the Garden of Eden, the donations match them. Whether it's now or on annual anniversaries, it is our tradition to basically provide do something in charity. If you are interested in doing so, the family has suggested you consider Cancer Care in Manitoba. And I think it's the Alzheimer's Society that covers dementia. Or of course, we'll just choose a charity for choice. We move right now to the Al Malach Rachamim, which is the formal prayer of grieving and loss. I'll do it in Hebrew first, and then I'll come back and do it in English. I'm very concerned when I do it, make sure you have a full sense of what's going on here. And after we'll continue with the Mourner's Cottage, which is a prayer of grieving. What I'll do right now is ask you all to stand. Shmuel Shalach Lo Baal Rachamim Yasirenu B'Seter V'Chonafav L'Olamim Yitzror HaChayim Et Nishmato Adonai Nachalato V'Yanuach V'Shalom Al Mishkavo life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Saul's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all his worthy and righteous deeds, and his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Saul's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love be shared and shared, not be severed in sorrow. Let the rest of peace. Together let us say. Turn to the mourner's cottage. It's actually a prayer written partially Hebrew and mostly in Aramaic. It does evoke ideas of death and other things. It's a routine that we carry on over the next year. The idea that every time we do this prayer, we actually engage in conversation with one another. So we get to say the things we need to say, they do too, both positive and negative. We get to say. I'll ask the family to join me. Anybody else is welcome to do so. I'll also indicate that in Jewish tradition, our rabbis tell us, we simply say Amen. It's as you said before. Okay? The word Amen comes up a number of times. What I'll do as I approach it, raise my hand. And you'll create the right time to join. Join the mourner's family as well. And if any of you feel comfortable for your own reasons to say the mourner's cottage, feel free to join us as well. May the love and eternal connection of our souls give us strength as we turn to recite the words hallowed by time, sanctifying the name of God, we honor the memory of Saul Jacobson with the words of Kaddish Tom, the mourner's cottage. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shnei Rama, Yallah, Yibrach, Yibrate, Yamlit, Malchuzeh, B'chaye Ton, B'yameh Ton, B'chaye B'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'ala, B'zman, Karib, B'yuru, Amen. Yehi Shnei Rama, Mevorach, Le'alam, Le'amein, Amaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitbahar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalel, Yitalal, Shnei Kedusha, Kedu, Le'ela, Mikol, Birkata, V'shilata, Tushbekata, V'nehemata, Daliram, Yidala, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rava, Amin Shemaya, B'chaim, Aleinu, Yalkol, Yisrael, Amen. Aseh Shalom, B'rama, Luya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu, Yalkol, Yisrael, Amen. The last two paragraphs speak about peace as well. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us in Israel, to which we say. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel and the world, to which we say. Amen. Please be seated. I'm going to do a quick half volley here. We use new language rather than B language or B language. And this will be the last piece of what we do today. After that, I'll encourage the family to lead first. And then we'll follow roll afterwards and lead up again and move next door. These are my words for you. Eternal God, Master of mercy, give me the gift of remembering. May my memories of the dead be tender and true, undiminished by time. Let me recall them and love them as they were. Shelter me with the gift of tears. Let me express my sense of loss, my sorrow, my pain, as well as my love and words unspoken. Bless me with the gift of prayer. May I face you with an open heart, with trusting faith, unembarrassed and unashamed. Strengthen me with the gift of hope. May I always believe in the beauty of life, the power of goodness, the right to joy. May I surrender my being and the soul of the dead to your all-knowing compassion. Thank you for joining us.
Folks, you can just follow up and join the family in the lunch.
Can I cut?
Yeah.